testimony. The Lord spoke to me and said there was an Air Canada plane coming out of Toronto. It was going to have mechanical issues in the next couple of days. And if we pray right now and partner together with his word and release our voice, he said angels would be released and nobody would get affected. And long story short, we released that word. And then all of a sudden, 4 days later on Wednesday night, AC, Air Canada 872 coming out of Toronto. The engine had the faulty issue with an engine. They had to make an emergency landing. People on the plane themselves, like we're talking passengers, said this. They said it was so chaotic in the air, but we could feel that God was in control. Guys, I believe we're in a time right now where the word of the Lord is needed now more than ever before. And out of this, it's I know for myself, and again, I can't, I've processed a lot with you, Art. I don't fully understand how everything works. I wish I did, but I don't. I do know, though, that he's reestablishing, I believe, the prophetic in Canada at another level, and that we're going to need it in this season. And, last week, and there's two things I want to say. It's interesting with AC 872. I asked the Lord, I said, is that significant? And there were two parts to it. Number one, that AC 872 was going from Toronto to France. If you know a little bit of the story of me and my dad, we had another kind of testimony that took place in 2005. I was actually with Art Lucier, me and my dad in Kitimat, BC. You guys had prayed for us and said, God's releasing the lightnings of God before you. You're going to see the lightnings go ahead of you in Toronto. Me and my dad were going to Toronto 2005 as we were flying to Toronto from Vancouver. There was a plane called Air France. And I don't know if you guys remember in 2005, it was called the Miracle in Air France, a plane that got struck by lightning, overwent the runway, and literally every person got out within 2 minutes and the whole plane caught on fire. And we were literally the plane behind the Air France plane. And so twice it's been Air France twice it's been around France. That's been significant. But here's what the Lord told me this last week. So I was in Abundant Life Church, and the Lord spoke this to me, and he said, Sammy, you need to pray for France. France is the tip of the spear. And the Lord told me, he said, as France starts to go, it's going to be a domino. And the Lord started talking to me about the dominoes of righteousness that are about to fall in this season, and that we're about to see a change in the nations. It's going to be a sign for Canada. And he said, I want you to pray for France. And God gave me three important words. And I'll just share this. It's all recorded, by the way. It was, I released it on Saturday and Sunday at Abundant Life in Edmonton. And the Lord showed me, number one, he said there was a terrorist attack that was coming. And he said, the enemy wants to sow seeds of chaos in a time where the Lord's about to pour out revival. And he said, you need to release the angels to rebuke the chaos so that people don't get caught up in the chaos, but they start to see the hand of the Lord moving in the nation and the nations. And then the second thing the Lord spoke to me was that in the next couple of days after the word was released, that there was going to be a riot that was going to take place in France. And the third thing the Lord spoke to me was the rise of immorality. And long story short, I saw, I don't know how much I can get into all of this, but I saw a celebration of a transgender athlete that was going to happen at the Olympics. And France, the spirit that was behind in France was going to try to push a new level of immorality, but God was about to intervene in all three areas. And he said, if you would release the angels and you would break off right now the plans of the enemy, and this is why the prophetic is so needed, is because the prophetic exposes not just the hand of the enemy, but it releases the authority, because once that which is in darkness is brought in light, it has no authority. And I feel like too often that the enemy has been moving in the dark, because I believe the church, we haven't seen yet the things that God wants to show us. And I know that we're coming into greater levels of clarity in this season. And so I released all three. You guys, first thing took place as I released the word about the terrorist attack. ISIS, at the same time releasing the word, ISIS puts out a poster, says we're coming to the Olympics. The second thing was the moment we ended the service, a couple hours later, word came out about the election and things changing. in France. And now then a riot took place. And the third thing, which has now been all over the national news, because now with a potential new government coming in, is the whole aspect of the celebration of transgender athletes. And they said, you know what, this is not what we're after. And they're actually believing that they want to shift this. And so why am I saying this? Is because I believe, you guys, the word of the Lord is coming with greater precision in this season. I believe the word of the Lord is coming. The Lord spoke this to me. He said, Sammy, get ready. He said, by the end of 2024, going into 2025, he said, there will be dark days, but I believe we're coming into days where the Spirit of God is moving like never before. And we're going to need the prophetic. We're going to need the word of the Lord. And Art, if I could share one thing real quick, I actually feel like I have a word here today. And just on here for the intercessors, God is moving. I believe Europe is a sign of what's about to happen in North America. This is a word. Europe is a sign of what's going to happen. Here's what we're going to see, I believe, is that with everything going with France, you're about to see God expose the darkness in the UN. And here's what I saw. I saw the exposing of unholy alliances that are about to take place. You will see different countries that have made agreements with each other, and they're going to try to resist the righteousness that God wants to bring, but it will not work. And what the enemy tried to bring together in darkness, God is going to scatter in the light. And we're about to see a move of the Spirit of God coming with righteousness, where things, and I want to encourage the intercessors, because I feel this, is that when we release the angels, many of you, as you've been praying and releasing the word of the Lord, the angelic is going out. And I believe in this season, it's going to stop terrorist attacks. It's going to shift out darkness. It's going to topple governments, and we're going to see things happen through the word of the Lord in this time. And I believe so strongly that we're in a place right now where there is a tipping point that is taking place. And again, like what you said before, Art, about France and Canada, I believe there is a connection that's there, and there's a connection of what is changing in Europe. I believe it's also going to start to change here in our nation and in North America. And so thanks, Art. I don't want to take too much time, my friend. If there's anything else